Shabbat Shalom. I know it's Shabbat, and we're supposed to take a break from the rest of the world, but there are 3 days left. With a razor-thin margin in the polls, we might not know the results for days or weeks or months. With all the chaos that might ensue, the month of November, and for us as Jews, Cheshvan, a month typically known for its lack of holidays, is shaping up to be stressful and uncertain and anxiety-ridden. Now, I wish I could say that this week's Parshat, Noach, teaches us about how God will swoop down from the heavens and make sure our longed-for election results come true. Or I wish I could say that just like the Mabul or the flood in the story of Noach, that God will wipe away what we find abhorrent in the world and let us build a society anew. I wish I had a wand to predict the future, just to even know what will happen. But sadly, even as a rabbi, I cannot do any of that. So we turn to our parashah together to mine the text to help guide us in this moment of uncertainty. How should we walk through the world over the next few days, weeks, months, or even years? How can we and should we approach this scary time in our nation's history? Not only how will we act, but how will we cope? Our parashah opens by introducing us to Noach and his family. Noach is described as a righteous and tamim man, meaning whole, complete, unblemished. The newly created earth had become filled with chamas, lawlessness or violence. And God told Noach that God will destroy the world. Aseh lecha tevat, God says. Make for yourself an ark, a teva. There are strict instructions for this ark. The type of wood, the size, the compartments, who shall be on it, and the various types of animals to rebuild the society after God floods the earth. Most importantly, there are 2 commands from God to Noach to walk through the world during this world-shifting moment. Make a teva and go on the teva. Leave the rest of the world behind, God says, and go on to the teva, or how we translate it to be ark, and the world will be built anew. The teva in our parashah carries Noach and his family to a new land, or a renewed land, clear of all that was, and theoretically ready to start again fresh. As I studied the parashah this week, I found something powerful about this word, teva, and the command to build and come onto it that can offer us guidance for how to navigate the stormy waters of America in this moment. Now, teva by dictionary definition means chest or container. The other usage of this word in the Tanakh is found in Exodus, as Moses' mother Yocheved bravely places Moshe in a teva in the Nile, instead of obeying Pharaoh's command to throw baby boys in the river. And here the teva, with its ability to float, ushers Moshe to safety so he can lead the Israelites out of Egypt and slavery into our next chapter, and ultimately right up to the promised land. There's something about the teva as a chest, a special container with its ability to rise above the tide and float with no destination, that demonstrates the sacred power a teva holds. There's also a deep trust in the teva that we assume Noach finds in the teva as well, to float to somewhere better. Part of using a teva lies with the need to extend trust to where the teva might take the passenger. To explore more about this word, however, Dr. Annabelle Herzog from the University of Haifa points out similar language between the command from God to build Noach's teva and the command to build the Mishkan, the tabernacle in Exodus. As I mentioned before, the text we'll read today, Aseh lecha tevat, make for yourself teva, an ark, in our parsha. In Exodus with the Mishkan, we find the famous words, Ve'asuli mikdash v'shachanti betocham, and let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. In both of these, Herzog points out there's a sense of creating a dwelling for the holy, human life, or for God, in the case of the Mishkan. The ark and the tabernacle hold a higher purpose in their reason for being built. But there's also a parallel between this language and the golden calf. While growing impatient, waiting for Moshe to return from Sinai, the Israelites exclaim to Aaron, Aseh lanu Elohim, make us a God who shall go before us. For that fellow Moses, the man who brought us from the land of Egypt, we do not know what happened to him. Aseh lanu, make for us. Herzog points out, in this language, build for us, the Israelites act in a way to fulfill their own desires. The ark and the Mishkan, however, fulfill the will of a higher power. And not only that, but Herzog points out that the ark and Mishkan both move. They travel towards something, even if the destination is unclear. They are not representations or celebrations of the people's current situation, but they represent a striving for something better, an aspiration for the future. They represent hope. Through the similarities in the language of the command structure and Moshe's usage of teva, remember, as a floating in the Nile, we see this container that has the ability to move us forward when we are afraid or in uncertain waters, guided by God's will. The teva still requires trust, yet part of the gift of our tradition reminds us, even now in a week where we really need a lot of trust, that there is a teva for us to board and ride to better days. And maybe that's what we need as we enter Cheshvan. So you may be thinking this is a pleasant idea, but the interpretation leaves me and maybe you asking, okay, so what? How do we board this teva to navigate this month? What is available to us to go into and to board? What does it look like to come into a teva as God commands? In the Talmud, the meaning of teva picks up another meaning. In multiple places, the word teva means a word, like a word of text or a word written into being. In a powerful interpretation of that definition, the Baal Shem Tov takes this to mean teva actually means Torah or tefillah, prayer. He wrote about this meaning of teva that every letter contains words, souls, and divinity, and that comes together to make a teva, an ark that unifies our soul to the divine. And that unification will bring us simcha, or joy and delight. Further, he writes, what it means to come into the ark, as God calls to Noah, that we'll read in a few moments, means to come into prayer with every ounce of our body and our energy. I like this idea. I'm moved by this idea, this Hasidic-inspired definition of our word teva. The life-saving force for Noah and all humanity, and then the life-saving force for Moshe and the Jewish people, is found by entering a teva, which by this definition is full-hearted, honest, deep prayer. Maybe the meaning of teva for this moment calls for us to enter a more intense, immersive prayer practice than many of us are used to. But to test out what the definition might further mean for us, I read through the Parshat and replaced the word teva, where we normally translate it as ark, with prayer. So here's what I found. The world was evil, And God told Noah to build a prayer practice with specific instructions and different compartments to have different layers to the prayers. Make an opening for light in the prayer practice. God tells Noah that God will establish a covenant with Noah, and God commands him to enter his prayer with his family. God also asks Noah to take 2 of all that lives into prayer with him, incorporating other elements of the living natural world into this prayer practice. Noah is silent through all of this, and yet he does as commanded. All the words Noah did not directly say to God in our text, that are seemingly missing in our text, Noah begins to pour out after he entered into prayer. As the flood came and wiped out the world, prayer kept Noah afloat and above the madness. All existence was blotted out, the text says, except for Noah and those with him in prayer. Noah lets a raven, then a dove, out the window of the prayer to see if it's safe to return to the rest of the world. Once the dove brought back an olive branch, God called Noah to come out from the prayer. Noah exits the state of prayer, ready to face the world anew. We see a rainbow as the sign of the covenant. We see Noah speak, able to discern what's right and wrong and proclaim his connection to a higher power. It's the same story, yet with a radically different meaning. What if in this moment, as Jews, we're being called into prayer? What if the way we can traverse through the uncertain, scary waters of the coming month is through a constant effort to pray? Now, you're already here praying together, but this prayer isn't entirely supposed to be fixed. This moment, I believe, requires both fixed and personal prayer, and often, and in all different locations. Most of all, the moment requires the prayer to be wholehearted and authentic and an outpouring of our hearts. My teacher, Yiska Smith from Pardes, who's visited here a few times in the past year, taught this moment might bring up anger toward God about what's unfolding in the world. And yet she said, this is the moment to express that. Talk more. When a relationship feels distant in our lives, she said, we often need to communicate more. And just yesterday in the New York Times, there was an op-ed titled, "You Might Consider Praying." The author Sarah Sherbill wrote, what if we redefine prayer entirely? What if when you are home, you simply sit in a chair and breathe, imagining you are worthy of what you pray for? Maybe that's peace in your heart, or strength to act with courage when you're terrified. Maybe you're asking for the clarity of mind for what path to take next. Later writing, we need to learn how to pray again so we can see ourselves anew. The only way for the prayer to be real is if we truly speak what's on our hearts. Often, I know for me, we sit with our anxiety and fail to speak it out loud. We feel an overwhelming sense of doom, and we hold that in. Yeah, I believe in this moment of intensity in our country, it demands us to say exactly what we're feeling to God. We are called to build a teva and speak the words aloud as we enter our prayer. God, I'm anxious. God, I'm scared. I'm mad. Help me see hope. The Baal Shem Tov wrote in the same section about the teva that if we're able to put our feelings into words, we will be able to watch those words soar up to a holier place. We will be entering a teva, divinely held, until we too can reach out for the olive branch in the new land that awaits. Now there's one more element of this teva I'm grasping onto for hope in these days. Make an opening for daylight in the teva. A tzohar, God commands in the text we'll read. Or in our version, make an opening for light in the prayer. The Degel, grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, interprets this as light will come from prayer. Light is what flows from prayer. The teva that we're commanded to build, that Noach is commanded to build, has a requirement to have a space to let light in. Through prayer, then, our Hasidic masters teach us, we can navigate the stormy waters by allowing God's light to sustain us as we travel. I'm still anxious, and it's still a scary time, and we have every right to be afraid of what might ensue in the days ahead. We are living in stormy waters. Yet if we follow God's command in the Parshat, we are called to build up our prayer practice and dive in. And yes, I hope that you make calls and texts and knock on doors in the days ahead. But I also hope you spend the next few days, and as long as we need, praying wholeheartedly and saying how you feel out loud. Fixed prayer with our community, prayer on your own, in your home or out in nature, or wherever you find spirituality and a connection to the divine. This moment calls us to immerse ourselves in the teva, in prayer, so that we can create a space for ourselves to radiate and fix and offer light to a world that so badly needs it. And like the command, may the ark continue to move us forward and take us to a point where we can rebuild the world to be a world of justice, equality, trust, and love. May we find comfort and peace in the days ahead, and may we pray and pray and pray until we make it to dry land. Shabbat Shalom.